So part of getting more people to race oval and oval pan cars is to demystify how hard they are to work on and set up. I'm Chad, this is the Dorky N40 RC channel, and we're gonna try to make you faster today. So we're working on our 2025 Resurgence here, and it's the OvalWorks kit that we've been running the past week or so, and we've got some big races coming up, and I'm working out a couple kinks on the old car. After switching over from the 2023 Octane, most of the things transferred over, but since I did make some pretty drastic changes to the car, like switching servos, I needed to go ahead and do some setup stuff. Now we're gonna think and just plan that you're starting at the most basic thing, that you have your car relatively built and set up where you want it to. You've got your ride height. Say I run my 4.5 in the front. I run about 5mm all the way back through. I've got my droop appropriately set to like 1.5 to 2mm. Everything's happy. My weights are close. My cambers are good. My tires are cut to the right size. So that way we're just not wasting any time. And of course, a big shout out to all of our channel members. And if you want to support what we're doing here on the channel, you can click the join button below and join the channel for as little as $2 a month. If you like what I do here and you want to help feed the dog, you can also buy something down there with the Amazon affiliate if you want to help us out as well. Then of course, we got everything set up here on the bench, and there's things that we got to consider and everything. First thing we're going to do is we're going to look at weight. So your typical tour rules for either a 21.5 or a 25 car is about 915 grams for the car, and that is just for the car ready to go. Now when you throw the body on and stuff, everything goes up. You have basically multiple weights that you have to meet requirements depending upon how technical the actual tech crew is being. You have your car weight, your minimum body weight, and then your minimum overall weight with everything. So my car currently is sitting at about 914. If I budge the scales, it hits 915. I just scaled this out and mine's all ready to go. Now there's a couple considerations that I have to make. At my local track, we have a older timing system, so we use the RFID type of track mate system. Most of the other tracks are using like an AB type of deal, and this transponder, of course, weighs a lot more than that one. So right now, I have extra lead tape back here on the very back left corner that weighs about 5 or 6 grams. And the consideration that we have to make is that when I rip this out to go switch and race somewhere else, which weighs about 1.5 grams to 2 grams, this weighs 7. So then we're going to automatically get 5 more grams on our car. And as you can see, there's not a good place to put it here in the back or anything else. Yeah, sure, we could try to stuff it in somewhere back there. Maybe it would fit, maybe it wouldn't. I have a smaller transponder that's tucked away inside my GT12, but I like the way it's sitting. Maybe I'll take it out, maybe I won't. But those are some things that you want to consider if you're really looking for that, like, total edge, which, you know, I'm looking for hundredths of a second, if not thousandths, because the 25.5 just stock class, sportsman class that we're running is ultra super like competitive. Really, it comes down to driving. This gram stuff really isn't going to matter for me personally, because I know that I'm losing those times in the corners, but it all just makes you feel better. And if we weren't talking about it and showing you guys how to do it, then there wouldn't be no reason for us to be here now, would there? So as I said, I'm pretty happy with the way everything is going. So I've went around, of course, with my ride height gauge and just checking all of my ride heights. As you can see, I'm around 5 in the back, and then I should be, yep, 4.4 to like 4.5 right there. And then if we tap again and come back here and we're at 5 and I pull up on the shock tower, I should hit about 6.8 to 7. Yep. So I'm almost at that 2mm of droop. Now, if I needed to put more droop into it, it's pretty much just like any other on-road car. The way this thing is set up is that you could extend the shock length right here by turning this piece. And then, of course, you would turn the collar on the spring to reset your ride height, and you kind of start all over again. It's only going to affect the rear back here. It's not going to affect the front much at all unless you have to make really drastic changes that will kick this thing up and down. I recently got some new OvalWorks springs here, which are 135 millimeters versus the shorter 110 millimeter spring I had on here before. And this thing maintains its ride height way throughout the run, and everything is just perfect. It's very, very easy to tune. We're talking just minuscule dials. Now, when we're on the subject of weight, a lot of people will get lost in trying to position weight and everything else. And now that's really important. You want the car to turn left, of course. That's what we're trying to do. And typically when we weigh out all of our cars, we're really trying to figure out our weight on this tire right here. Now, it's something that you really don't want to get lost in. I mean, you make your adjustments over here on the right side. Typically what I do when I go to the track is I will run some practice laps with my car, and I will wait until I will basically loosen the car up by making the spring longer until the car starts to spin out. And then what I will do is tighten up the spring, increase the preload until the car runs good. Now, assuming that you have your droop set correctly, because if you don't have enough droop, you're basically creating too much front grip, not enough rear grip, and your car will spin out. So that's other things to think about in consideration. Instruction manual on OvalWorks definitely says 1.5 to 2 millimeters. I ran closer to like 1.1, 1.2 fresh out of the gate, and it did not work on my local track because the grip just isn't as good. And then the transitions onto the very, very sticky ice and tape just was a disaster. It immediately created just immense front grip, which basically would just spin the car out. So the other thing we're going to assume is that you have your body all weighed out and everything as well, and that it's cut, your wheel arches are nice, everything is just 100% perfect. And you know, you want to make sure when you put your body on there that, of course, that you have enough ride height all around. And the first couple times out when you are running your car, you're going to want to inspect your body and make sure that you're not getting any kind of rub marks or anything like that along your bumper or your sides. These bodies will, you know, they'll flop around quite a bit. I mean, these cars, even at 25.5, are really cooking. There's a lot of leaning and stuff like that going on. So definitely double check that when it comes to getting your ride height type of stuff and everything set up that way. So the new OvalWorks car has a couple different ways to adjust your ride height. The main thing, of course, is you're going to be running the main tire size all the time. So you're going to figure out your tire size, you're going to get a true down, and your tires are going to last. A newer tire, of course, is always going to be faster, but a lot of people just aren't going to throw $30, $40 worth of tires at their cars constantly. So when you decide on the size of tire that you are going to run and you get everything set up, the ways that you basically can shim the 2025 octane to get the rear is there are shims that go underneath the one-piece pod right here that are stuck in between here. And then in the front, for the front ride height, basically OvalWorks makes these carbon fiber adjustments that are really awesome to slide in and underneath your arms right here. So that way you can hit the appropriate ride heights that you have to get. They're really cheap to get the kit, and I would recommend that you pick up 2 sets of those, so that way you have multiple sizes of the small ones. There are other ride height shim kits that you can get that are just basically like little washers that are in different thicknesses and stuff. They're easy to use, and I would definitely recommend them if you have access to them, but they just are kind of hard when you're basically trying to do something here with your front end, because you have to sneak them in underneath those big screws right there. So having these things that just slot in and out and can be easily removed from the inside right here after you loosen up the screws is definitely a superior way of getting that all done. Just makes everything real nice and cleaner. And I'd say it a bunch of times, but that's the great thing about working on oval cars is that you're not constantly like chasing setup. And when you get to that point where you think you probably just need to drive better. And that's kind of where I am right now. So I'm trying to get my car back to where I think it was before, and also work through the kinks of, man, this car does handle and drive a little bit more different because now I'm running like a fiberglass T-plate. everything's kind of new and, rebalanced, and we got the more powerful SXR servo in there instead of the KO. It's also lighter, so we got a little bit of a lighter front end that we're dealing with, so we're trying to work a few things out with that. So the next thing we're going to do here is kind of work on the front end as far as toe and sub trim and everything like that goes. If you look here closely at the car, you can see that my servo mount here is pointed directly at this center dot right here. So it's like an oval thing that people do. They always will offset and sub trim their servos to make sure that they are kind of like offset that way. That way, when I guess you turn left, like it's not all the way over here, throwing off balance. You can see it can never really come back. It's never going to come back further, past center right there. So it's kind of a weight thing. Again, we're turning left here, so we're doing everything possible that we can to turn left appropriately and consistently. Now, one of the things we do with our foam tires here is we actually, besides cutting them down to the size, is we will cut camber into them. Typically, you'll be anywhere between like 1 and 2 degrees type of camber cut into your tire. So basically, if I took a tire off here and if you looked at it, you would be able to see that the tire is basically coned going this way to the outside. And it's the same thing yet opposite on the other side of the car. So that way the front end basically is always rolling to the left. And then what we're going to do besides that, so we've got basically our built-in 1.5, we are going to adjust camber right here on the Tsunami blocks with any type of camber gauge that you have. Now, some people will cut their tires to 2 and then run 2.5 or 3. Some people will cut their tires to 1.5 and run 2.5 or 3 total. I've got my tires cut to 1.5 and I run about 3 degrees of total. And basically, I kind of just take the setup gauge and I move it like under. So it's a very weak 3. So you could say 2.8, 2.9. And that's just kind of where I've decided to run and all that stuff. And camber is, besides ride height, is something that you definitely are going to want to make sure that you are checking in between each heat on your car, especially if you take a hit, because things like that can get out of adjustment. So once you're satisfied with all of this stuff, the next step you want to do, of course, is work on your sub trim and set your toe. I have a Huddy setup gauge because I have it for my on-road car, so of course I'm going to use it. Now you might not, and you're looking for a cheaper way to do it. The old school guys pretty much do it this way. And what you're looking for is a number of around 30 thousandths or 0.03 inches on your calipers. And how you're going to do this is it's pretty simple. So you are going to make sure your calipers are zeroed, and you're going to kind of go and do one of these things right here where you're going to come to the back of the tire here and you're going to pull it out. And then what you're going to do is zero your caliper, come to the front of the tires. If it doesn't fit in there, then you know that you don't have enough toe. If it fits in there, then you're good. So what I'm going to do is just spread mine out just a little bit. And you can see I'm pretty tight now. I'm at about 0.02. So I need to add a little bit more toe into this. And for that, I'm going to use my Huddy setup gauge. And starting off with all that, the first thing I'll do is just basically turn the remote control on, and I'm going to like take out any trim that I have in this already. So I had like 3 clicks of left trim. You're always going to have to trim it out depending on your track. And, some people will choose to turn your dual rate all the way up and stuff too. My dual rate is at 16, and we're not turning these tires, hardly at all. So I'm not really worried about, we're not measuring throws completely and all that stuff. So we're just doing this for toe. So let me get the setup gauge on the front here. And then what we'll do is we will bring both of these to 1 and 1 degree toe out equals a little bit over the 0.31. It's about 0.31, 0.32, which is fine with me. Now, in order for me to get everything to work correctly on here, what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to add some shims. Now, you can either shim the setup station out away, or you can add shims onto the end of the axle like I'm doing here. The nuts that come with the setup station, they don't really fit on the axles for this truck for some reason. So I think, they're obviously made for a different kind of a 1/10 scale Pancar, like maybe like a WGTR or something like that. But these Tsunami or Overworks front axles, yeah, they just don't work. And then I just want to make sure that everything is, super and tight right there, and that we don't have any type of, actual movement or anything. Now, one thing that we do have a problem with here is, since we have such a low ride height, is that this piece over here is not hitting the ground like it should be. So the chassis itself is actually setting down, and it's keeping us from getting like the optimal type of toe reading that we're going to want. So I'm just going to kind of play with it a little bit here, and we should be okay. So this gets you definitely close enough on the money what you want to do. So let's go ahead and turn the car on here, and then we'll grab, you can see we've got everything turning. As long as things are turning like that and we've got, some kind of contact, we should be good. I've done this plenty of times, and it's never been a big deal. So what we're going to do is we are going to drop the setup gauge on top of this and make sure it is locked into its channels. And then it'll be very hard for you to see, but basically you have your markings on here. So you've got, your 0 marking right there and right here. And then of course you've got 1 degree. So we're just looking for 1 degree out. And what I do is just kind of wiggle my wheel a little bit and then bring this back here. I can see on this side that I am actually, probably for some reason that is pointed to less than a degree. So I'm actually negative on that side right now. I did redo some stuff on the front end, so that definitely could be causing that. And over here, I am slightly above 1 degree. So pretty easy. All we're going to do is just take our turnbuckle wrench and fix this. And we'll figure out which way we have to go. We'll just kind of start by turning in a little bit right there. We'll work on that side first, and we'll do our little wiggle, and I could see that got it almost there. So I'm just going to give it a slight turn. This oval stuff turns a lot more than like any of your standard type of buggy turnbuckles and stuff like that. Maybe a little bit more. And I am happy with that side. With this side, we're going to look over here. Again, we are way off over here. So let's try going the same direction. All right, so we're going in the right way. We're at 0 right now, so we need to go more. And just like that, we are at 1 degree. So we basically have our 1 degree toe going on both sides, which is what we want. That'll give us that old school method of about 0.31, 0.032. And I'll be happy with that. And I'll throw the car down and basically run it around. I'll have to make a couple clicks of trim either way to figure out which way I want the car to go. And then of course, you know, how far I want it to drift out and drift back in on the straightaway. And that's going to vary depending upon how long your run line is. Now these hoodie setup gauges are pretty expensive. I'm lucky that I get to use the same setup gauge for 2 different classes of car. Now I do have one of those for my buggy, which some people would say is overkill, but it's funny how often it gets used at the track. So I think a lot of people definitely love it and enjoy using it and trust in it. Point being, though, is make sure that you put everything away and definitely take care of it, and it will take care of you. So don't be jamming these things inside of your box, because you can bend these things, get them all out of shape, and then you're going to be out some serious cash, unfortunately, because they are pricey, as we have discussed. So always make sure that your nuts are nice on there and that everything is spinning good. And do not lose all of your wheel adapters. So I'm going to put all my wheels back on. I'm not going to run any shims to the inside right now. I'm going to basically set this up as a pretty neutral setup. I used to basically just run an extra 0.2 shim on the left-hand side, but we're going to forgo that for right now and see how this all goes. And then we'll take it to the track. And if I think things are a little bit too twitchy, or if it's too lazy turning in or coming out of the corner, then we can start with the front end. When it comes to like shimming and setting up the rear end, really don't change that a whole lot. I mean, I pretty much run the standard type of stuff, which is about, I don't know, 4 of the 0.2, so 0.8 shims in between the spur and the bearing holder here, and then about 0.4 on that side, and that seems to just make the car pretty happy. So if the car again is a little too twitchy and I've added enough shims to the front end, I can always try working that on the back end as well. I know, you know, it might vary from track to track, people's setups, things like that. So again, it's all just figuring things out for yourself, and, you know, figuring out if there's anything for you to gain by doing any additional setup changes. I'm going to always say that the most important thing with the oval, of course, is driving, and of course taking care of your car, making sure everything is free and smooth and all that good kind of stuff. There's definitely more, I think, that you can get out of messing around with radio settings, for example, than there would be to like messing around with shims all day on your car. So just kind of take that for what it is. So I'm going to get this thing back together. Hopefully you guys learned a thing or two, and we'll be running this car a lot in the next couple weeks. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out and ask. So we'll talk to you guys later. Peace.